If you remember a few years ago, I reviewed a great little thriller called The Invitation with Logan Marshall Green. This is not that movie at all. This is a different movie called The Invitation that's about vampires with a regal touch. So anyway, let's discuss. The Invitation stars Nathalia Emanuel, Thomas Doherty, Stephanie Cornelucen, and is directed by Jessica M. Thompson. What's up, guys? Time for another brand new 2022 review. Really excited today because I get to review a brand new vampire movie. And this one's got to be great, right? Because it's a vampire movie and everybody loves vampire movies. No, this one's horrible. It's really bad. Yeah, let's get into it. Lately, I'm finding more times than not, vampire movies suck. No pun intended, but I don't know what it is, why it's so hard to make a great vampire movie. Because to me, I think there's a few ingredients that are at least a really, really good start. You know, give me a lot of blood, maybe go into the lore a little bit. You know, there's been a million different vampire stories out there to explore. But, you know, just, I guess, show the darkness of the whole thing. You have free reign to get, you know, a little weird, a little eccentric. Look no further than Bram Stoker's Dracula. You know, there's so many instances of great vampire movies throughout the years. You know, this one's going for more of a regal touch. Interview with the Vampire, great example. Fantastic film. If you want to get down and dirty, make it more of a modern day setting. You know, you got great movies like Near Dark, Lost Boys. There's so many great examples. I guess so many instances of a palette to pull from, right? But unfortunately, more times than not, it seems like, especially lately, we get this type stuff. And you know what, guys? This movie is so bad that the later part of the review, I'll probably talk some spoilers, because there's some great examples of, I guess, missed opportunities in this movie. And I kind of want to touch on some of the spoilers because, trust me, you don't even want to waste your time with this movie. But anyway, let's be fair. Let's give you a quick plot synopsis. Nathalia Emanuel, or is it Natalie? There's a TH in there, so I get a little confused. Loved her work in Game of Thrones, actually. You know, fantastic actress. And this is one of those actresses that I could definitely see a bright future with, you know, in terms of film. But she plays Evie. Her mother just died of cancer. And I guess she's really interested in her lineage, you know, and I guess she's tied to this family who they're all having this get together in Europe, which this is one of my problems with the movie right off the bat, is how she just so easily buys into this complete stranger who is supposedly her cousin, and he gets her to come to, I believe it's England, to attend this get together at this big mansion. Which, when he's pitching it to her, I don't think she knows that it's a mansion yet. But, I mean, it could be anything. He could say it's a mansion. It doesn't even matter. But she just so willingly goes over there. But I guess you got to get from A to B, right, as far as your story goes. And you want her to be over there. So I'll give him a pass there. But once she gets over there, she meets the head of the house, Walter. He's too good to be true. You know, he has everything at his feet. Very good-looking man. And so you automatically know, story-wise, going into this, that something's rotten in Denmark. So really, most of this movie is this character, Walter, completely smitten with Evie and trying to get with her. And there's a reason there, because later in the movie, they want to have this wedding. But the thing is, she doesn't know that he's planning this whole thing. And this is all in the trailer, too. But I'm going to be talking spoilers later anyway, so why am I even telling you that? So you know that there's evil afoot. We know that this is a vampire movie. And so, what do we want with a vampire movie? We want some nice, violent moments, you know, some feeding here and there. You know, stuff that we usually get in vampire movies. Blood. Unfortunately, this movie is so freaking lukewarm, so bland, so boring. And I think the biggest problem with it is its pacing. It spends a good 75% of the movie just kind of setting up the chess pieces. And really, the only thing worth mentioning is kind of the last act, when there's this, I guess, big action set piece We'll talk about that a little later in the review. There are some scares that are planted along the way throughout this movie, as you would see in any script, I guess. Talk about going for the most generic, lazy scare that you could possibly imagine. I don't know why filmmakers, why writers don't get a little bit more creative if you're going to be making, this is a horror movie. It's supposed to be a horror movie, right? But they go with the same lazy jump scare idea that we constantly see. There's quite a few moments where they put that stinger there, that musical note that, just jumps out at you. But the problem here is it's so predictable with the scares. You automatically know that there's going to be this loud bang, this loud noise that happens when, they're telling you when to be scared, when it should be unpredictable. There were a few moments in this movie where I was like, if they didn't even put like a musical note there, that scene would have probably been more effective. But it just felt like they kept doing the same tired scare over and over and over. And, these scenes are very few and far between, even though they're not effective at all. I think Nathalia Emmanuel does a fine job here. She does the best she can to hold this thing up. Capable actress. But she really has nothing to sink her teeth into for most of the movie, no pun intended. All the other characters are pretty stock, pretty cliche, including Walter, who is supposed to be the main head vampire. You have these two females, Victoria and Lucy. They're both vampires, and they are kind of, I guess, underlings. One of them's been there for like 100 years. The other one's been there for like 500 years. There's a scene at the end of this movie that kind of makes no sense. Because you have one of those characters that just turns coat. She's been in this predicament for 100 years, and then all of a sudden, just, drop of a hat, she just switches sides. Okay, jumping into that last act, which this is definitely spoiler talk here. There's some potential there. Really, there's one scene when you see Evie turning into a vampire. Well shot scene, looks pretty interesting. But what's to follow is just a really lazy fight between her and Walter. She tricks him, he's stabbed, and then she kicks him into a fire. This is supposed to be your head vampire, and this is, supposed to be like the equivalent of Dracula. Very intelligent. Who knows how many centuries old this guy is. And he's beaten, just like that. Like it's no problem whatsoever. That's your big finale. And by the way, the finale is probably all of 10 minutes long. I literally almost fell asleep a couple times in this movie. I fought to stay awake. Nothing was happening. They were really leaning on this whole romance story between her and Walter that you knew was going to go south eventually. But they didn't sprinkle it with anything interesting along the way. It was just kind of boring and bland and stock and cliche. And then they tack on this, I guess a coda. Like after everything has taken place, and then Evie has lost her powers because the head vampire has been killed. And so under those rules, which that's a funny thing about vampires movies too, is like they pick and choose which traits of vampires that work and which ones that don't according to the story. And these particular vampires can walk in the daytime, which I think that takes something away. It's kind of like the kryptonite, You got to give your villains some sort of kryptonite, but if they can just walk around in the day, kind of dumb. But it's almost like, I don't know, are they vampire hunters now at the very end of this movie? It was just a needless scene. It's just a shame when movies that clearly have a budget, because this movie had a budget, you got great equipment that they're using for a movie like this, great cameras. Everything's like the creme de la creme in terms of filmmaking. But it feels like it's just all a wasted effort. There was no creativity that went into this thing. And it shocks me that movies like this get sent to the theater. I don't understand it. This felt like one of those movies that should have went to Netflix, like straight to Netflix. Because you know how Netflix has a lot of just really bland, bad movies. I think the thing that holds Netflix up to me is some of their television content and their documentaries. But the movies, wow. This should have went straight to Netflix just because it's one of those type movies. I'm going to give this a low 2 hours lost. It almost got looped in hell. It's that bad. It's really bad. I think it's an interesting moment at the very end, the final act. But outside of that, wow, just horrible. This movie's horrible. One of the worst of the year. So, have you seen The Invitation? Let me know down in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. Woody Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Drumdum out.